Hey everybody, just wanted to give a warm welcome to all the new subscribers to the channel. Today we did an interview with a very special woman in my life. I'm sure if you guys come to know her, she will likely have a reoccurring presence on this channel, as this channel is devoted to business and self-improvement in regards to business. So I do want to say thank you for all the BRG listeners. Thank you for listening to our very first interview on this channel. In that regard, the guest has a special offer. I will have it down in the description. So please read it. It's a great offer, especially for the first 15 participants. And this was a personal one for both of us because D.I.S.C assessments are very viable tool for self-development, and I really hope everybody enjoy. I really hope everybody learns something. We have more content like this for this channel in the future, and we hope that this brings value just as much to you as it did to us. Toni Walker is a fantastic woman. She's done a wonderful job in her career thus far, and I think you guys are going to really enjoy listening to her. So thanks again for listening, and enjoy the interview. Welcome to Business Rant Growth. Today we're interviewing Toni Walker. Toni is the founder and owner of the Potamos Leader. And besides me knowing my life, she's a wonderful advisor. She has coached me in personal ways that help me understand myself and what I do, how I come off in situations. I don't want to get too personal with it, but I just want you to know that she has a lot of wisdom. You to her, she will tell you, and she will help you see it from another angle. So everybody, this is Toni Walker.
Hey, Marcus.
Hello, Toni. Hey.
How are you doing?
Okay. We're doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. You know what, Marcus, you were breaking up. I'm just letting you know you're breaking up.
Oh, no. Hold on. Let me try to. I forgot that thunderstorm coming in. Let's see. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I just want you to know that your intro was breaking up. I don't know how it's going to sound when you listen to the recording, but I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Yeah, that's fine. If it's
You're frozen now. You're completely frozen. Look like you're moving around, but
on the Wi-Fi.
Okay, I got you back now.
There we go. Okay. So you want to tell a little bit about yourself, maybe just a brief introduction of yourself.
Yeah, I started the Potamos Leader 5 years ago when I left my position as an IT business analyst, because I was looking for some other way to really add value. And I know coaching others and helping others to really fulfill their dreams, overcome obstacles, because I've had to go through the exact same thing. So I do understand uh, the need for women in leadership, the need for women to have mentors, in order for them to really be successful in leadership. And I founded my company because I wanted to be one of those who help women in leadership and to become better leaders. So all of this has been a beautiful journey. Owning a business is not easy, but it has some very fulfilling moments, and I'm very, very grateful for that opportunity. And I'm just very thankful that you asked me to join you in bringing DISC to the masses, helping people understand a way to communicate, how they communicate, and to really humanize communication. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. It's a pleasure to work with you as well. Just to add a little insight to how we started to discuss DISC and which led to this interview a few years ago. I had a company that I was forming and trying to get it going, and Toni offered to um, do a DISC assessment that she was sort of like testing out when she first started issuing or selling it rather. And so me and my founders, we took the assessment test and we got back way more than I would have ever thought. So not only did her assessment, her version of the this assessment tell you about what letters what letters you are and like the variances in between them. So for the record, I'm a high D. Not too high, but I'm really high. I think I'm about three notches, uh, three levels from like the top, something like that. But I do have a pretty reasonable um, eye level, so that was pretty informative. But then when I started reading like the personality sections, the drivers, that's really where the insight started to shine for me because not only did it show what motivated me, it showed how I'm motivated, um, and like all of it was accurate. And if you allow yourself to not have an ego or pride and just humble yourself down and read it, even if you think you don't agree with it, chances are you're doing it more than you think. And so one of the feedback on it was tends to have like sort of like harshness, brash uh, word word choices, and that's true. I've definitely gotten better over the years at not being so blunt.
Yeah.
But it was informative, and I really appreciate it. And then the best part to me was it showed how I can communicate to other letters, which
Yes.
I've never had that before. So not only did I learn by myself, I learned how I can communicate better to other people because as a D, if we all don't know, D is a dominant, right? So it's a very they can be very aggressive unintentionally, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
uh I's and D's are kind of like best buddies on the chart, and then S's and C's are like, nah, we don't really like you. So it's like, uh,
It's not
so
that
it's just
bad.
I mean, they
It
just
can be, but
now I'm not as bad as other D's I've seen. I would think so. I hope I never have reached that point, but it's like S and C's. The way they live, the way they communicate is very different
yes,
from D's
yes,
and I's.
yes.
So I struggled learning how to talk and handle and be around S and C's.
Hmm.
Um, and so to get your assessment back and and it shows like, okay, this is what they're looking for.
Yes.
And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's like, me being a D, I'm on the go like constantly. It's just like, nope, don't need all that. Let's go get it done. And then to learn that S and C's, they like to have the checks and balances. Like, okay, but is this in order? Is this done right? And I had to
Right.
learn to value that. You know what I mean? Like, because I had to learn that these people are there to can help you stay out of trouble for one, and then better communicate what you're trying to do and how to go about it. And I find that a lot of leaders, they tend to just want to say what they want, and they just hope you just get it, right? And that's not, to me, my personal opinion, that's not effective. What's
Right.
effective is
Right.
knowing the personalities, learning about how to communicate so you can say, okay, this is what we need. How can we go about it? And and kind of have a conversation where everybody provides input, and then we come with hopefully a concrete way, or at least a good enough plan to execute.
Right.
And so that's where the value for me came in, was learning how to communicate with the I's, the S's, and the C's. So thank you so much
Mm.
for that assessment. I still use it to this very day. I have it right next to my desk. so,
It's always
so
a good reminder to, it's a good thing to reference every so often, because it is a good thing to sometimes, you, take a temperature check of what kind of changes have I made, how much progress have I made, how much progress I have not made. Just it,
yeah,
the reason for the detailed report, it is so that you can reference back to it and read through, and especially now that you are aware, now that your awareness has been increased, uh, now you have the ability to go back to the report and read through, uh, and things that you may have said, no, this doesn't apply to me. You may now recognize, oh, oh yeah, I guess I do that. Or I wasn't aware that I did that. Now you are aware. So without awareness, you can't change anything. You can't prove anything. You can't measure anything. And so I I was absolutely a fan of the DISC assessment the first time I ever took one, particularly from TTI back in 2017 when I began my business. I had a mentor who introduced me to it, and I I said, you know what, this would be an absolutely great tool to help people to realize who they are, what their strengths are, and what can happen if they're unaware of who they are. Because when you're unaware, your strengths then can become your weakness. And during stressful times, they can become your weakness. So I absolutely appreciate your willingness to take the assessment and then be intentional about applying what you've learned from the assessment, because that's what we all need to do. It's one thing to take the assessment, it's a whole other thing to apply what you learn from it.
yeah, it it it's one of those things in life where you have to definitely be humble about yourself to really take it in. Because what I find is, even if you think you're not doing it, the real question is, but is that how other people take it? So,
Perception.
if I don't think I'm mean, that's one
Hmm.
thing. But the other problem is, do other people think I'm
Exactly.
mean, as an example? And
Exactly.
that's where people, I feel, tend to kind of not really understand. It's not just about what you think about yourself. It's also about how you're perceived.
Yes.
Um, like, case in point, just to give a class example before we ask the first question. Everybody knows Steve Jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody liked Steve Jobs. What a lot of people didn't probably know is that Steve Jobs was considered a tyrant at
Yes, he
Apple.
was.
He was
Yes,
not very well liked
he was not.
at his own company. Yes,
No.
he was good at creating new products, but how he went about it is where it's like, you could have done a whole lot better in,
Exactly.
and he probably knew he wasn't a very well liked person, and he probably just made amends with it. But that's just another example of you can be great at a particular area
Mm-hmm.
and still lack in others because you fail to develop those areas, like being more personable, like understand how to
Yes.
communicate in an effective manner.
Yes.
And another thing I just wanted to say to add on to this uh, topic, Simon Sinek, if anybody don't know who he is, he's a great person about empathy
Yes.
and leadership. And
He gives some really great insight.
yes, he man, he's great. I just love to listen to him talk. And one of the things he said he talked about was stop praising brutal honesty. And
Mhm.
as a person who's pretty blunt, I would say I had to kind of look at myself like, why would you say that? Like, of course you want honesty. But he was correct in it's not just what you say, it's how you
How
say
you
it.
say it.
And
Yes.
you know, you can say something differently than the way you want to say it. So if I wanted to say, okay, maybe this particular task you did is just garbage, right? That's a very blunt and unemotional, unempathetic way of saying it, right? But if you can say the same thing by saying, I think you can do better.
Right. Yeah.
And when he broke down the distinctions, I was
Mm-hmm.
like, which is why
Yeah.
it was like
Yeah.
it's okay to be honest, but you don't have to trample over people's feelings and
Yeah.
lives to accomplish it. You can just say, hey, like, okay, but what was your first thought? And
Yeah.
actually work with them to get the same result versus trampling over their feelings like you just don't care. So this is very important, I think, for everybody.
Yes.
Not even just for business, but in personal life.
Yes.
Um, so
Absolutely.
again, thank you for the assessment. That was still grateful for that. So
I wish I had taken this assessment uh in while I was in college, because I was known as one of those people who was brutally honest. And I was often referred to as mean.
mhm,
And I remember the general manager, because I used to work at the amusement park in Mall of America while I was in
yeah,
college, and the general manager uh, said to me one time, he said, "If you have to tell people that you're nice, then maybe you're not."
mm,
And he was saying it in a joking way because I had a really great relationship with him. Um, but what he was trying to tell me was, you can't just say that you're nice. You have to show people that you are nice. The way you talk to people shows how, where you are, whether or not you're very kind or compassionate, or are you brutal and, like you said, people, acting like you don't care about people's feelings. And so I really wish I had uh, taken this assessment years ago, um, just for, because man, I can, we could sit here all day and recount all the
yeah,
times I could
yeah,
have saved myself um, the headache of conflict had I just known, So, um, I do think I am very thankful that I know now, and I can help someone else know. So
yeah,
that is exactly why I do what I do, because I want to be one of those who help affect change in a very positive and real way that literally changes or transforms someone's life.
That's good. Yeah. I'm on board with that. And I think what you're doing is awesome. And is needed. Um, which is why I wanted
Especially
to partner
today,
with you. Yes.
especially
It-
today,
yeah.
especially,
Oh
I
man.
cannot emphasize that enough, especially today.
All right.
Uh,
So let's start with the first question.
okay,
Um, what is DISC? Um, what does what does this do for you? For not only for individual but for companies. Like, if you can break it down for us, I'll give an overview of it.
sure. So before I explain this, I want you to think about someone that you have struggled to like, someone that you struggle to have a good, positive conversation. Um, think about all those conversations and tell me what was it about the conversations that were difficult? And was it just your struggle to understand? Or let's not even talk about appreciate that person's communication style. So I know I can count. I don't even know that I could give a number of how many experiences I've had. So we've all had this experience at some time in our lives. So simply put, now that you have that thought, simply put, DISC is the study of behaviors. It's the study of human behavior because human behavior is universal. We like to believe that we are unique, and we are, but you're not so unique that you cannot be understood. So human behavior is universal, and DISC is that universal language that you can use on to describe human behavior. So it is about how you do what you do. It is observable. So we're not talking about the internal motivations that people have. We're talking just what you can observe. And it's not about judging someone. This isn't about good or bad, right or wrong, because every style of behavior has its positives and negatives, so pros and cons. Um, so this is a combination of your nature and your nurture. So your nature, what is inherent to who you are, and then your nurture, what is your upbringing, how your upbringing impacted you. So the DISC assessment that I use, it can help identify your style. And then I help you identify, understand, and appreciate other people's style, including ones that are different from yours, but also develop a process to, to, to communicate with those styles. Okay, so it doesn't measure your personal motivations, like I said before, but it doesn't measure your experiences, your education, your skills, um, your intelligence, emotional or cognitive. Uh, so I start with DISC because it is, to me, a very powerful tool to increase your communication effectiveness, as you pointed out from your own experience. So, what can you do without communication? Well, I don't know anything that you can do without communication. So when you begin with the communication and the way you communicate, That's essential to all your relationships, and DISC is that great foundation for that. So uh, before we move on, let me just tell you this interesting fact about DISC. It is based on the research and the subsequent inventions of William Moulton Marston. He's a Harvard educated PhD who created the superhero Wonder Woman. And besides that, he was also a teacher and a consulting psychologist. But was very interesting, besides the fact that he created Wonder Woman. He conducted some interviews of 4,200 criminals in Texas penitentiaries. And he found that his test for deception was 97% reliable. 97%. Now, this is the early 1900s. So this was the beginning of what we know today as the lie detector test. So Marston, he used it in criminal psychology, but he also found it useful in marital, social, and personality related issues. So he wrote a book in 1928 called The Emotions of Normal People. I love the term normal people. So the emotions of normal people, and it describes those theories that we still use today. So basically, Marston is considered the creator of the DISC behavioral theory. So it all began with the lie detector test, which I find that very fascinating, that it began with the lie detector. So
how
just
fitting.
know, yes, just know that, you're not going to trick the assessment, because even when you try to trick the assessment, it can pick up on that you're being inconsistent or that you're manipulating the assessment. So I just thought that was interesting, that I wanted
That
to
is
share.
insightful.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. But 97% reliable. And this was the early 1900s when this was.
That
So we're
is
talking
amazing.
100 years ago. Yeah,
That is so amazing.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm like, that's pretty
Yeah, I
good
never
right
knew
there.
that. That's wow. That explains a lot though.
Doesn't it? Doesn't it kind
it,
of give
it
you a
explains a
greater
lot.
insight? Like, okay, that
Yeah.
explains why. All right, I got it now. I got it. That's why those questions are
Oh yeah.
really, yeah. That's why the accuracy of the DISC assessment
Wow.
is just amazing. Just amazing.
Oh man, that was good.
Yeah,
That was
I
insightful.
thought
I like
so.
that. All right, let's see. Let's go to the next question. What is the general archetype of each letter?
Okay, so DISC is an acronym. So when you think about each letter, know that there are two N's that reflect each letter. There's a high and then there's a low. So this is about the intensity within each letter. So our behaviors are a combination of each one of those letters. It's just, like I said, just a matter of intensity. So what I'm about to describe is looking at the behaviors of just the pure letter. So not considering the combination. So this is just an overview. So to begin with D, that stands for dominance. So this is about the approach and your response to problems and challenges. Notice in each one of the letters that I described that we're talking about a P and a C. And for the D, we're talking about problems and challenges. So the higher the D score, that person is probably more aggressive in taking on challenges and more direct, as you described being a high D. Uh, so these are your people who are your go-getters, and they are often seen as the natural leaders. But the lower the D, the more reflective. So they are more laid back, and even though you may not look at them very often because they're, like I said, they're kind of quiet, so they're laid back. They are really excellent as team players, part of a team. So the high D, more of your natural leader, the lower D, more of a team player. So the I in DISC, it stands for influence. So the I is focused on people and contacts. So these are your people. They often, when they look at a stranger, all they see is someone that they, a friend that they haven't met yet. So think about it. Do you know someone who attempts to influence people to their point of view? That person is very likely an I. A higher I is very outgoing, very creative in problem solving. And if you're not paying attention, they're very persuasive, very persuasive. But the lower the I is very reserved. So they are logical and very straightforward, but they use facts instead of persuasion. Their facts are their persuasion. So the S stands for steadiness, and this is a reflection of the pace and consistency in their environment. So the higher the S, they want a more predictable environment. They want to finish what they start. So they too are great team players, and they're very easygoing. The lower S wants more of a faster pace. They tend to pivot and jump first. So not a whole lot of planning necessarily with the lower the lower S. So they may struggle with finishing what they start because of this. Now, here's my transparency. I'm a low S.
Me
So
too.
I have to pay attention to starting and finishing.
Yep.
So absolute transparency. Once you're aware of things, then it kind of helps you understand why you do or how you do it. So that's my transparency point there. But finally, the C stands for compliance. So this is how you respond to procedures and constraints, particularly set by others. So the high C tends to be more compliant and they follow the rules. Now, they will ask all the right questions and they're looking for the facts. So if you're trying to persuade a high C, you need to come with the facts. The lower C is more of your pioneering and they question the rules. They're more likely to break the rules. They'll make decisions and adjustments based on the situation. So just recognize that it's not that they don't think the rules matter. They just recognize that everything cannot fall under, clearly fall under the rules that are set before them. So note that each letter has a different focus that we all deal with at different times and different ways. So like pace, consistency, people, and constraints. So it is the intensity that determines your likelihood of displaying or acting in any of these behaviors. And so we are all a combination of each letter. We just need to understand the intensity, like I said, the high or low. So when you take the assessment, you may be surprised at that result because this is one of the things I love about it. It brings that objectivity to understanding ourselves. So it's really interesting to watch people's reaction when they realize that they're higher in one part and lower in something, and they thought it was the opposite. So just recognize there are pros and cons of each behavior, but if you're not aware, you will not be aware then of the impact or what happens when you're stressed. And in those situations of stress and lack of awareness, like I said before, your strength becomes your weakness. So think about that, but also recognize that because, like you mentioned before, certain behaviors, they work well together, but others may work fairly well. But that is still dependent on the level of awareness and that willingness to adapt. So I know that was a bit long, but I wanted to make sure that I clearly state what D.I.S.C really is. And there's so much more behind it, but that's the overview of what D.I.S.C is.
Yeah, that was good. And I think that's important though. And that I love that you explained that there's a sort of variance in each letter. So it's a high D and then there's a low D, and the personalities, the way they go about it are very different. There's
Mhm.
high I, high S, low S,
Right.
high C, low C. Um, and like you said, this is one of those things that you like before you take it, you think you know yourself, and then after you realize
Yeah.
you didn't really know yourself. You probably knew some things about yourself. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, that's pretty true. I could believe it. But then it's the ones that
Yes.
you probably may not like to see or hear or read. And you're like, no, that's not me. It's like, no, it's probably you.
Yeah. The more you
It's
deny
more
it,
than you think.
yeah. The
Yeah,
more you
because
deny it, the more likely. Yeah.
like
No.
you,
Yeah.
I'm low. I believe low. Is it S?
Yeah.
That's
Lois.
so. It's so funny because actually, last month, um, I've been just doing too much just to be a little transparent, and I had to
Yes.
realize that I was just jumping from project to project to project to project to project.
Yeah.
I wasn't finishing, um, and then I was so overwhelmed. And
Yes.
the truth was, I overwhelmed myself,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this is where the assessment comes into play because I picked it up immediately. I was like, okay, I got like 5, 7 things going on. I need to stop,
Yeah.
pick and choose which ones I can do, and put
Right.
the rest at least on hold or just don't do
Right.
them.
Yeah.
And so I narrowed it down to about 3, and and so that's where the assessment really helps, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
I was able to pick up immediately what I was doing. Like, okay, hold on. Like, I know why I'm over stressing out myself, right? I got too many projects. They're all requiring too much time. I have a family, I have a wife, I can't do all these things. I need to limit myself.
Right.
And I asked my wife to hold me accountable to that. Um, that's where this really helps you. It'll help you pick up upon yourself and what you're doing. Like, oh, okay, well, this is what I've been doing. Okay, so I need to
Hmm.
be aware that I can change it. I can shift. Like you said, if you don't, if you're not aware of yourself, you can't really change,
That's it.
right?
That's it.
And me being a high D, low S, a mid I, you know, um, I'm I think I'm almost non-existent on the C part. So,
Oh, so
compliant,
you're a
yeah,
rule breaker in many
yeah.
ways, I'd
I
say.
will. I have. That's the
Yes.
problem. I like transparency. I have to really create barriers because
Yes.
compliancy is just not really my realm. Um, but but again, the assessment noted that and was like, okay, so you need a C around. You need somebody who can basically teach you compliant and hold you accountable to compliancy. That you
Right.
can't just do anything and everything you want at all times, right?
Right. Right.
So I believe breaking down each letter the way you did was very helpful. I'm sure our audience will appreciate knowing that knowledge about this. So thank you for
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
So next question is, what are some practical ways to utilize DISC individually and corporately?
Very good question. Um, like I mentioned earlier, I believe DISC is it's a connector. So I like to see it as bringing humanity back to our human interactions and relationships. So I see it as connecting humans to humans, starting with you connecting to yourself. Uh, so this can identify areas for improvement, uh, as you have pointed out from your own experience. And this understanding helps to minimize your conflict, especially unnecessary conflict, uh, and increase your productivity and communication. So if you are a leader, and I got news for you, you all are leaders. We all are leaders because leadership is about influence. DISC is a great way to influence, not manipulate, but influence other people. So because it is about how we communicate. And like I said, there is nothing you can do without communication. Now, if you work in sales, learning DISC, it can help you understand how to connect, especially to a new customer, because you need to gain their trust. You need to uh, build rapport in order to really make the sale and to keep them as a customer so that they keep coming back to buy. So this as a salesperson can help you to adjust your communication of the product and service uh, that really resonates with that customer. Now, that's on the individual level. As a company or organization, DISC is a really great development tool. It can help revitalize and redirect current staff. Um, it can support and help evaluate performance. Uh, it can also be helpful in coaching for improvement because you hear a lot now about companies really trying to develop a coaching culture. I'll try to say that fast 3 times. A coaching culture where managers are more of a coach than just a manager. So it's a great way to recognize your strengths and weaknesses in a current employee's current job position. And the other way is it's a strategic tool. It's a really great strategic planning tool to identify employees for advancement um, within the organization, or if you're trying to restructure. I was actually working with an attorney a couple of years ago, and unfortunately, it's because of COVID that the talks didn't go any further. But I was working with an attorney who had a client who had just bought another business. And unfortunately, his previous business, he had burned so many bridges um, because of his communication style. But that in his new company, he was actually looking to uh, get some coaching on how to really help that new company grow without burning bridges. And so he was going to utilize my coaching services to help in the restructuring to make sure that he didn't burn any bridges. So you can use D.I.S.C in many, many different ways. And one way that I think is sometimes we may overlook it is in the hiring process. What is called job benchmarking, where we can take a position and we can outline what the score, the D.I.S.C score, um, needs to be for that position, because it's about predicting behavior. And this is about um, being compliant also. So this is EEOC and the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs compliant. This is EEOC compliant, where you can utilize D.I.S.C along with some other sciences, because D.I.S.C is not the only science that I work with, um, where you can utilize it in the hiring process. And it really helps to reduce the amount of stress that the new employee may encounter in the job, which means higher productivity, right? But the last thing I'll say is you can also use comparison reports. So if you utilize it as a development tool or a strategic planning tool, you can then combine reports to compare employees on a team, identify any communication gaps, uh, compare a manager to his or her direct reports. Um, you can use it if people are just in conflict. You know, there's that comparison report for people who might be dealing with conflict within their relationship. So can you imagine what could happen on a team if every individual was aware of how he or she communicates, and then understand and appreciate how the others on their team communicates? Man, you talk about great productivity, great communication, great camaraderie. Now expand that out where every team in an organization has that. What can that organization do? You talk about being not just an industry leader, but what a great um, impact they could have locally in their community, their local communities, within their employees' families. So we're talking, it may start with one person, but that one person reaches so many other people just by that one person getting the D.I.S.C assessment and getting that understanding of how he or she communicates and behaves. I love just just the thought of what that could accomplish um, in an organization, and I love just working with organizations to accomplish that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love what you said, and I'm with you on, just imagining if corporate companies and organizations utilize this um, for all their employees and sort of like optimized in a way where you can get high levels of productivity,
Yes.
um, and sort of like unison as well. Like, because a lot of times, if anybody have ever worked corporate, you'd notice a lot of departments don't work well, right?
No.
They really don't. Like, it's a lot of fighting and bickering, toes being stepped on.
Hmm.
And we as the end user, we see the product and we
Yes.
buy it,
Yeah.
but you don't you don't never see
You have no
these
idea
corporate
what goes
like
on
just
behind.
fiascos that go on behind the scenes. And it'll shock you if you ever get into corporate America, just how much conflict exists in the
Yes,
corporations. A lot of times it does really come down to communication.
it does.
Some people talk in a way it can be demeaning, it can be condescending,
Yes.
and it rubs a team the wrong. I mean, I've seen, just to be a little transparent, I won't say who, but I've seen one person pretty much just offend like a group of people in one Zoom call.
Yes.
It's not hard. It's really not hard.
Yes.
Um, and it's just shocking. It'll
Yeah.
shock you, it really will. It's just like, okay, like, wow, like you
Yeah.
really need to know how you come off, So,
Yes.
um, so yeah, I'm a firm believer that this is one of the many tools that can definitely help organizations and companies be more effective. So
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
well said.
And the thing is, it really starts at the top, because it's your leaders, your management at the top that really sets the tone for what is acceptable and what isn't. And the lowest level of behavior that you're willing to accept, that's your culture. So, what if the lowest level of behavior you're willing to accept is that people are just talking to each other in a way that shows appreciation for who they are? You don't have to agree with everything that they say. You don't have to say, "Oh yeah, I agree with any idea that you bring forth." No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about just creating the environment where those ideas can be discussed and counter ideas can be brought to the table. So that's really what we're talking about when we're talking about DISC and the impact that it can have on the communication within an organization. And Simon Sinek, who you brought up earlier, I do believe he was the one that said a team is not a group of people who work together. A team is a group of people who trust each other. You build trust in your
Very good.
communication.
Yeah.
You build trust in that communication. You're and communication is not just about you speaking, it's about listening. And it's about your having good understanding of what was actually said.
Hmm.
So that's when I talk about communication and building a great communication um, um, effectiveness within the organization. I'm talking about the ability to listen, understand, and then properly respond.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree with you that in corporate America, there isn't enough being done to bring that type of environment. And oftentimes it's out of fear of, you know, do I have enough money for in the budget to to bring this type of training or coaching within the organization. Um, ask these organizations now, with the great resignation taking place, if it would be worth it now.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it would be. I think it would be.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I I I find it a bit fascinating to see companies have is have nearly infinite budget for a product, but
Yeah.
very little budget for self development.
Yes.
And for their employees. It's always been kind of weird to me. It's just like, you really think you can accomplish great things with a dishonest, company, like of individuals? Like, it's just not going to happen. Which is one of the reasons why you see companies fail so often.
Yeah.
If anybody doesn't know business listening, that is one of the reasons.
Yes.
you know, people who are great, who know what their worth is, and know who they will leave if you are a company that does
Yes.
not value their insight and their abilities. They will leave in a heartbeat.
Yes, they will.
And I'm not mad at them, because I would. If what's the
Hmm.
point of having me there if you're gonna just trample over every idea I come forth? You don't listen to me. You don't value what I do. Who wants to be in any organization that's like that?
Hmm.
So, um, again, I firmly believe that DISC is one of the main tools that is necessary. Don't be cheap. That's all I can tell you. You know,
Yeah.
there are always different assessments, but the ones that you want, specifically the one, Tony, that you have, you want the
Hmm.
one that's going to give you as much insight as possible.
Yes.
I mean, a complete breakdown. If the more you know, the better.
Yes.
Um, and if your company doesn't have any in their budget, I would argue to fight for it. Fight for the budget to to get that productivity out there, because you're gonna make, if you're looking at money, you're gonna make more money by having the disc done and helping people become more aware.
Yeah.
It's gonna have a nice ROI if you just invest in it. So it's an investment in your people, and
And
that's how you should look at it.
you just said the key word though, invest. It's not spending, it's an investment. Because when you invest in something or someone, you are saying that I think this has great value, great potential. What a great message to send to your employees if you were willing to do that.
Yeah, it really would. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's people want to be invested in. They want to know that you believe in them. You
That
know,
you just see them as valuable and worth the investment because you do believe in them.
yeah, yeah. Well said. Again, well said. Um, so let's move on to the next question, which is a bit more personal. What are some what are some benefits that you've personally had with this? If you willing to?
Oh boy. Wow. Well, uh, I have personally experienced much less conflict. When I think about the number of unnecessary conflicts I had at home, in school, at work, at the grocery store, eating at a restaurant, you name it. I could go on and on. Man, if I just would have known this information about this, it would have changed just my whole perception of humanity. Because there was a time, I will be completely transparent, I did not like people. When I tell you just the thought of having to deal with a person, now I feel so confident in mankind. I really do. I see the positives of of humanity. I see the positive of just seeing a person and not expecting them to communicate like I do, but understanding their style of communication. Now, am I saying I have zero conflict? Oh no, that would. I am still human. I will be the first to acknowledge I am still human. I still have some conflicts within my life, but for the most part, it has completely changed uh, how I see relationships. Um, I I have become a person that people enjoy being around, and I enjoy being around other people. Uh, it doesn't mean everybody likes me, and that's okay, because that's that's not for me to to. That's not the purpose of my life. Is to get everybody to like me. Uh, it is to build relationships with those who are willing to build relationships with me, and I am better at doing that now. I am able to communicate in a way that people want to talk to me. So let me just tell you the downside. When you take this assessment, you may have it where more people may want to talk to you. More people may want to talk to you. They may want to be around you. So, warning, you may experience an increase in the number of relationships you have. You may experience an increase in the quality of the relationships that you have. So, that for me has been the greatest benefit that I've experienced. And, you know, I I had to recognize that you're either competing or completing in your interactions. You're competing when you just exchange information and you're trying to give your point of view. Completing when you're looking for that connection and understanding. So um, I build rapport quicker um, as a result. So that means I've gained their trust. So that has been the most wonderful benefit that I have experienced.
Awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that. I'm sure a lot of people are gonna, you know, listen to this interview and have more interest in DISC. Uh, um, and I would hope that this interview has been insightful, um, to not
Yes,
only understand what DISC is, but how it impacts your life.
yes,
Um, and me and Tony can tell you that it's more than just letters and words on paper.
it really is.
It's so much insight. It's so much like even with my marriage has benefited from it because my wife is a high I,
Yes.
so although me and her are more naturally compatible because D and I's are tend to get along quite well, but
Mhm.
she's a lot more higher on the, I believe, the C uh, scale than I am. So where I would just do, she'll stop and check, like, okay, do we know what we're doing? How is it going to happen? And I, I appreciate just her personality and the way she functions to say, hey, before we just go out here and do something, let's make sure we think about what we're doing, make sure we understand what we're doing, what's going to
Mhm.
happen if we can. And I find that a lot of companies lack in valuing differences between people. These tend to get a lot of praise. I can tell you that now as a D. But
Yes.
the problem that I ran into as a D is we tend to lack in um, communicating with understanding, right?
Yeah.
So me, for me, as a person who's a D, I would my preference of asking would be like, okay, just go finish this task, right? It's very short, sweet, and direct. It's just that's what I want you to do. Don't bother me with nothing else, right?
Yep.
And it may work in some cases or with some people, but you'd be surprised if you're a D listening, how something as simple as that can really rub the wrong person the wrong way.
Mhm.
And I had to learn, hey, okay, not everybody wants to be talked to in that manner, right? Some people
They
need
do not.
questions answered.
Yes.
Some people need that. They need, okay, so why am I doing this? What is this
Mhm.
benefiting? Is it benefiting you, whoever? How is it going? And I can't, as a D, as a high D, I can't look at it and be like, oh, it's just annoying. Like that's not great. That's not good leadership at all. Right? I have to be able to value that they actually not only are different, but their willingness to ask questions that I may not even thought of, which is more often the D's don't want to admit. That's often the case, right? The people ask questions that you didn't think of yourself,
Yeah.
and we get annoyed because we feel like we gotta make up for the lack of thinking and just say, oh, well, of course I thought about it, and it's like, no, you didn't. it's,
Right.
it's usually obvious,
Yeah.
right? And so, but again, companies. I feel like companies and individuals need to value others in their differences. It's
Yes,
so
they
crucial
do.
because I feel like you're flying kind of blind if you don't.
Mhm. Mhm.
There's a lot of stories that anybody can pretty much either been through or can read about where companies have been saved because somebody who matter of fact, I'll give you a quick example before we end. Uh, so I was watching the Netflix documentary. I think it was called how our favorite movies were made or something like that, and it was about the
Mhm.
story about Jurassic Park. And what we didn't know was that Jurassic Park was supposed to be done through like stop motion because stop motion was really big in that time frame, and
Okay.
3D graphics was just starting to sort of take off.
Mhm.
And the 3D artist, he wanted to prove that he could create the same effect as stop motion, um, but in 3D. And he he brought the idea to his manager, and the manager didn't go through with it because the person who has tenure, uh, they did stop motion. The funny part of the story is that he did it anyway, and then he actually demoed the the T-Rex in front of Steven Spielberg and I think her name was Kathy. I can't remember her name. She was I think like the producer,
Mhm.
and they loved it, right? And it saved them a lot of money because 3D graphics is a lot easier to sort of render and get out there, right? And he probably rubbed people the wrong way, right? But his willingness to move forward and say, "Hey, I think this is a better product for the company." They could have easily saw it as disrespect or whatnot, but they actually championed the fact that he risked his whole career at the company
Yeah.
to basically enhance the movie. Um,
Mhm.
and that's just one of many examples I can go through where you have to learn to value where people are different in and what they can bring to the table. And sometimes you're not going to see it, you know.
Yep.
And until it's either too late or things are happening, you're trying to figure out why, and then the person you've been ignoring for the last 30 days or whatever, they've been trying to tell you what's wrong with the company or what's wrong with this particular policy or whatever, and and oftentimes that's what it is. You don't value that there are a C or a S or a D, and you think that you know better or whatever. And it's like it's not always black and white, right? It's a lot of gray
Yes.
area in these situations, and learning to listen to other people help you,
Yes, it does.
right? Learning to value and understand and get an understanding of what they see and what they're trying to convey will help you, prevent conflict, prevent sometimes catastrophic decisions. So, again, I think DISC is a wonderful tool. I certainly appreciate it to this very day. And I thank you for doing this interview with us and sharing to the BRG community about what DISC is and how to use it. So, thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, I appreciate your asking me to do this. I love just preparing the material because I get so excited about stuff like this. This is what I do. I wouldn't do it if I didn't love it. And it is very enlightening. Um, I would tell anyone, if you ever really want to really advance, um, it starts with better understanding of who you are, um, because you have to know how you work. You have to know how you um, move about and how that impacts other people. And so, just the opportunity to come speak on that uh, is really greatly appreciated. I have a special offer for anyone who is listening to this recording, that um, I've given you the link to to purchase the assessment at and I have a discount code for that. Use the discount code BRG 50, so BRG 50, to get 50% off the purchase of the DISC assessment. And with uh, the DISC assessment is usually $199. So for $99, you can purchase the assessment, but also it will come with the 12 driving forces, so the motivators, but also a special group debriefing webinar. So altogether, all of this is worth about $300, and you're getting it for $99. But you got to use the discount code BRG50. And because I want to thank you for listening and give you the opportunity to take this assessment. Um, it is, to me, it can really enhance yourself. So therefore, it enhances all your relationships. So I hope you will take the opportunity to do that. And I look forward to talking to many of you in the near future. And thank you, Marcus, for your um, contribution of just bringing topics like this to the masses.
Thank you. I look forward to um, hearing feedback from others who may not have known or didn't know enough about DISC, and find out there's much more to it. So, I look forward to all you listening. Please give us feedback. We will love it. We will appreciate it. Um, I, I do respond. So any comment you leave, I will respond to. And thanks y'all for tuning in.
One last thing, may I just
Mhm.
drop in just one last thing?
Sure.
I just thought about this. Uh, for the first 15 people who purchased the assessment, I will also throw in a free 45-minute one-on-one consultation. I'm sorry, 30-minute consultation. I can't do 45 minutes, 30-minute consultations. Uh, so first 15 people who purchase the assessment, you get that 30-minute consultation along with the group debriefing. So I just look forward to talking to you all, and I just wish you all well in your future as you grow and learn more about yourselves.
Definitely, definitely. Oh, thanks, Tony, for the interview, and we'll look forward to the feedback, and we'll talk to y'all later.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Back, and we'll talk to y'all later.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Back, and we'll talk to y'all later.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Back, and we'll talk to y'all later.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.